And why are we saying no? Well, let me read to you from the final report on the voice to the government, which says in part, engagement with the national voice would ideally occur early in the development of relevant laws and policies to allow for a partnership approach. The Australian Parliament and Government would be obliged, this is here in the document, obliged to ask the national voice for advice on a defined and limited number of proposed laws for policies that overwhelmingly affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Now, Daniel's just made the point. The ordinary Australian's not consulted about policies that overwhelmingly affect him, but it goes on. There would also be an expectation to consult the national voice based on a set of principles on a wider group of policies and laws that significantly affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So, Daniel, the government would be obliged to consult this national voice.
They would be, Alan, and that would be on every single major piece of legislation.
Absolutely.
Because Indigenous Australians are Australians, just as we all are. So whether it's tax, whether it's transport, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's health, whether it's education, all of those policy areas, defence, all of those policy areas affect Indigenous Australians in the same way they affect all Australians. So this Indigenous voice, there would be a compulsion on government to consult with that voice on every single major piece of legislation before the government. Now, this has the capacity to simply grind the whole operation of Parliament to a halt.
Completely.
What if they say, no, we don't agree with this?
Yep.
What
Off
happens
to the courts.
then? These are the questions that have yet to be answered.
Off to the courts. Off to the courts. We've got an enshrined constitutional right to be consulted. It's in the Constitution. They haven't consulted us on this. Off to the courts.
That's right, Alan. And can I just make one other point on this issue of mainstream Australians not having their voice heard? You know, whether it's net zero, we didn't get to have a say on that because both parties had the same policy. Whether it's mass migration, we don't get a say on that. Whether it's lockdowns and so forth, we didn't get a say on that. And in fact, people like yourself, when you raise questions about lockdowns, about other government issues, you risk getting cancelled.
Oh, yes.
You know, so this is the issue. When you do speak up, when you have mainstream Australians speaking up, or people like yourself who speak on behalf of mainstream Australians, you risk getting cancelled and shut down by the mainstream media. So this is the big issue we face in our nation.
Absolutely. More now than ever before. Now, this document also says, the report to Parliament it's called, it says the national voice would provide the mechanism to ensure Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have a direct say on any national laws, policies and programs affecting them. Now, as Daniel just said, health, education, transport, they all affect them. So government will be in a lockdown, shut down until they consult with these people. And then if they're enshrined in the Constitution based on race, then they race off to the courts to say, we've got these powers. They're validated in the Constitution and they're not being honoured by the government.